Hey guys, it's Libby, and today I have a video that's been requested quite a lot considering, so let's just dig into it. My topic for today is how to help someone with an eating disorder. So let's get going. The first thing I'm gonna say is educate yourself. Before you do anything else, educate yourself. So I want you to go learn what all the different eating disorders are. There aren't that many, it's not too hard, but like even if you think that the person you're concerned about has anorexia, let's say, you should still know what bulimia is, you should know what binge eating is, you should know what pica is, you should know blah 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 blah, you know, because eating disorders rarely are very one way, like, you know what I mean? Like, they often transform and kind of dip into the other eating disorders per se. So like, even if mostly their problem is restricting, they might also binge from time to time. They might also make themselves throw up from time to time or abuse laxatives or something like that. So it's important to just have a good knowledge base about what eating disorders are. That said, I want you to remember that no two eating disorders are alike. Like I said, some people are really like heavy into restricting but binge sometimes, you know, this or that. I mean, I'm not going to give you all the hypothetical situations, but basically eating disorders are different for everybody. Nobody's experience is this exact same as somebody else's experience, so just keep that in mind. And last part of educating yourself, I want you to get rid of your misconceptions. Some very common misconceptions are like, you have to be skinny to have an eating disorder, or it only happens to girls, so forth. I actually made a whole dedicated video about misconceptions for eating disorders. I'm going to link that in the description. Please watch it, because if you haven't experienced an eating disorder, and even if you have, there's just misconceptions out there that you might not even realize, you know. So whether you have an eating disorder or not, frankly, you need to watch this video because it's important to clear up these misconceptions. So I'll link it down below. Please check it out. I think it's a really helpful video, if I do say so myself, so check it out. So like, I made notes on my phone so that I'd make sure I said everything I wanted to say. So I'm gonna do a little bit of reading off my notes. I hope that's not too weird. So if you're going to approach someone with concerns, do so in a supportive, loving way. Accusing, challenging, demeaning, condescending, guilting, and yelling at them, those aren't effective modes of communication when you're trying to tell someone you're worried about them. So just keep that in mind. You need to be respectful of their feelings and where they're coming from. Often eating disorders are a coping skill, so often there's an underlying issue. So just like, remember that it's not all about the food and stuff. Remember that these people are dealing with a lot, and that this is kind of their way to feel better, so you attacking it is going to be hard on them. So yeah, but it's important to be honest without guilting them. Let them know what you're concerned about and why. Sometimes it's appropriate to give them a dose of reality, and by that I mean that eating disorders are very, very dangerous because you can literally die from them. So, you know, if you feel like this person's super deep in their disorder, it might not hurt to be like, look, I love you and you could die. I don't want you to die, you know what I mean? And you don't just need to say that. Again, the misconceptions, you have to be super skinny. You don't have to be super skinny to die from this either. So just keep that in mind. Given that you don't want to stay silent, so if you're thinking, oh, this person I know, I think they're struggling with this, but I don't think I should step in, you should step in. It's super dangerous. They could die. They could die. So keep that in mind. They could die. The next thing I want to say is, if a person is young, you need to go to a trusted adult, unless you're that trusted adult or something. So like a parent, a teacher, a school counselor, anything like that, the school nurse, you know, because eating disorders thrive in secret. It is so rare to see somebody with an eating disorder like walking around like, yeah, I didn't eat breakfast or lunch today, I'm doing so good. Like, you don't see that. You don't see someone leaving the bathroom door open when they're throwing up, you know. So eating disorders thrive in secret. So if it's just you and that person who know about it, and you're maybe like their friend, maybe you're young too, yeah, it's still gonna thrive. You being the only person, that's probably not enough to nip this thing in the butt and get rid of it. So yeah, keep that in mind. So if you're young, tell someone you trust or they trust. And if you're like, oh, we don't trust anybody, it's like, well, sorry, you gotta pick somebody, you know what I mean? So tell somebody that this is going on, because that person isn't gonna do it themselves, most likely. And if they don't, if you don't, if nobody does, then the eating disorder is just gonna keep going. It's just gonna keep going and going and going, and then they're gonna die, like I said. And that said, though, if you're an adult worried about another adult, then I want, unless you're like the closest person in their life or one of the closest people in their life, it's still good to tell somebody else. Like, say it's like your friend that you have and you're worried about them, but they've got like a significant other. After you talk to that friend, it might be a good idea to go talk to that significant other about your concerns, because again, they thrive in secret. If you're not in their life every single day reminding them that this is not okay and that they could die, then like it's not necessarily going to be super effective. It's not going to work, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying the more people that know about it, the better, but like kind of, you know, the right people need to know about it. So just keep that in mind. It might feel like you're going behind their back, because you kind of are, because they probably don't want you to tell anybody else, but it's their life. It's not, and even if they're not gonna die from it, let's say, it's their happiness, it's their self-worth, their emotional state, their well-being, their physical body's strength and like vibrance, you know what I mean? So like, even if they're not gonna die from it, they lose so much and they deserve better, you know, they really deserve better. So even though you might lose a friendship or something, you've got to do what's in the best interest of the person. You really do. You do. You have to help them, because they probably will not help themselves. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is what to say. Now, it's important to remember that your words matter. You can't just say anything, because some things are going to be triggering. Like if you go up to the person, you're like, I see you skipping meals and stuff, but you don't look sick, so I don't know. You know, like that kind of thing. No, because if you tell them they don't look sick, in their mind, that registers as, I'm failing, I am so fat, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So please do not say, you don't look sick. And also, please don't say, you look so sick, because chances are that's not going to matter to them, because their disorder is telling them that A, that's a good thing, and B, that they still don't look sick yet. And I say look sick, or yeah, I should have been using quotations all along, because there's no looking sick versus looking healthy, because I mean, you can look sick, I guess, but that's not, like I said, you don't have to be super skinny to have an eating disorder, you know what I mean? Whatever, that's not the point of this video. Check out my misconceptions video if you want to talk about that. But telling them that they don't look sick or that they do look sick, it's not going to make a difference to them. It's just going to hurt their feelings, or it's going to mean nothing to them, you know what I mean? So yeah, just don't even cross that bridge. Don't even go there. The next thing I want to talk about is using I statements instead of you statements, because you statements often end up being very accusatory, which isn't good and isn't going to get your point across or make them feel any good way about this interaction. So yeah, but at the same time, this isn't all about you, so you shouldn't be like saying things like, I don't know what I did wrong, I don't know how to help you, I am scared. Like those kinds of statements aren't gonna help, because it's not about you. It really isn't. Oops, ding, that's my recovery app that just dinged. So the things that you could say that are I statements are like, I am worried about your well-being. I want to see you get better because you're worth it. I know you deserve a happier life. Those are the kind of I statements that are more you-centered and you positive, as opposed to just tearing them down and making them feel guilty or bad, or you know what I mean? So those are the kind of I statements you want to use. You don't want to say things like, you shouldn't be doing this, you know better, you know what I mean? Like, those are the kind of statements you want to avoid altogether, because they are not going to be productive at all. Like, you should know that. I shouldn't have to tell you that, but I'm going to tell you that just in case. It's important you say things like, I'm worried about your well-being, I want to see you get better because you're worth it, and I know you deserve a happier life, because their perception is the one that's messed up. So same thing as if you're like telling them, you look sick or you don't look sick, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what you think they look like. Their perception is the one that's messed up. It's their perception that we're worried about here. So they may not feel like they should be happier. They might not feel like they deserve better or a happier life, you know? So you telling them that they do, well, it's not gonna convince them right away. They might not be like, oh, I do? I deserve better? Oh, cool. Oh, all right, I'll stop all this. You know what I mean? That's not how it's gonna work. But it's still important to keep in mind that their perception is skewed, and they might not feel like they're worth recovery or that they're sick enough for recovery. So it helps if you kind of validate the feeling that they are enough, because they are. So it helps if you validate that feeling. So as you can tell by everything I've talked about, this is a really complex issue. Just shoving food down their throat and signing them up with a therapist is not necessarily gonna solve the issue. As much as that would be nice if it solved the issue, it's not gonna solve the issue. So just keep in mind that people are all different. They all require different things to feel better, to get better, you know, so just keep that in mind. It's a tricky issue, but you care. You care. I can tell you care because you're here watching this video. I can tell you care because you watched the whole video. So I just want you to know that I appreciate you and what you want to do. Please try to take my tips and go about it the right way. But like I said, everyone is different, so maybe something I said won't go over well with somebody, but I think I kind of laid down the general groundwork. But yeah, so that's all I got for you. If you have any more questions or anything, just leave them down below. You guys feel free to chime in if you've experienced an eating disorder. If you're coming from that place of knowledge, feel free to chime in and help answer people. If you've got more tips or more anything like that, like related to this subject, feel free to leave that down below as well. And then lastly, if you have any mental health related topics that you want me to talk about on my channel, hit me up. Leave that down below in the comments or shoot me a DM on Instagram at LIBBEYTDS. Yeah, so, yep, just, that's all I got for you. Have a good one. Good luck.